When you look at a company and define its markets, does a company have to just think about the domestic or the US market, or should it also think in terms of other markets internationally where it can focus and develop its strategy?
Yes. Well, with the globalization of the world economy and the, especially on the supply side, and to some extent the equalization of incomes, although that's not yet to a point where it should be, it would be very unwise for any major organization to think only of the domestic market, even if that domestic market happens to be the United States, which is, of course, quite big. And the countries that are at the forefront of modern marketing thinking, and this is certainly, the U.S. is certainly one of them, have, I believe, a number of them have done very, very well in adapting their marketing strategies to international environments. We've seen the emergence of true global brands where one doesn't even know what the national origin of the brand is. You know, for example, you take a company like Nike, which is, of course, American, but its symbol is recognized around the world, and certainly is not necessarily an American symbol, so to speak. Companies that are doing very well in this arena understand what part of their marketing strategy can be global. In other words, what is the set of attributes that they rely on that are of a universal nature? Whether it's in design or in quality perception or in price point or what have you. And then, of course, there is another part of their marketing strategy which has to be adapted to local conditions. I just returned from a vacation in France, and I went to McDonald's there a few times, and every time had the opportunity to have a beer or a glass of wine with my meal, which is, of course, unheard of in McDonald's in this country. It's a very simple example of a company understanding how it has to adapt to local needs. As a result, we're now seeing the emergence of some truly global brands that seem to have that capability. And for the most part, they represent very, very high quality, very high standards in production and service provision. And in a number of countries, they really improve the standard of living precisely because customers can rely on these particular brands, more so perhaps than on some of the local brands that are also available. But at the same time, this sort of expansion comes with its own challenges, and especially in these times when the position of the U.S. Politically and militarily worldwide is being challenged. It is not always easy for companies to maintain their global brands in parts of the world where things are not so good. And we see a number of really quite innovative approaches there being taken. I'm thinking, for example, in the automobile industry, where we certainly see that, let me pick a Japanese company, Nissan, for example, through its recent design efforts, has really managed to become a much more viable global player as opposed to the almost uniquely Japanese and North American player that it was in the past. It has a much stronger presence in European markets right now, for example. And I would attribute it mostly to the universal appeal that their designs have, as well as a very good distribution policy. At the same time, we also now see some brands emerge from countries that have in the past typically not been such major players. I'm thinking of some of these smaller Asian countries, in other words, other than Japan, such as, for example, Korea. I'm thinking about some of the huge countries that are now becoming major players in international marketing, where they haven't been in the past. Examples are China and India, and to a lesser extent Brazil. And so with these developments and the fact that these countries often have younger population structures than Western Europe and North America, I expect to see a number of brand initiatives come from there that are going to have a major impact on the marketing scene in a number of countries.
In terms of actual tactical strategy, when a company is looking at its marketing, when they focus on different or target on different consumers, do they need to change everything, or can consumers be considered to be slightly, similar across different countries? So,
a very good question. We tend to think of consumers as clustered by countries. We think of the French and the Canadians and the Brazilians and so forth. But there is mounting evidence that the segments really cut across national boundaries. And so, for example, that let's say in Western Europe there is a certain segment out there that cuts across Germans and Swedes and Italians, and the same thing for other parts of the country, of the world. And as a result, I believe that as the importance of national borders goes down, in other words, as we see more and more free markets emerge and free trade zones, that we're going to see segmentation that is less along national borders, but more along the lines of true segments that exist in certain industries that cut across these borders. And it's going to be the clever marketers who find out what these segments are able to serve them across national borders that are presumably going to be the winners in this new environment.